In 1 week's time, the NFL season officially begins as the Baltimore Ravens take on the Kansas City Chiefs. But there are many, many question marks happening in the NFL just a week out. Uh, with what's going on nowadays when it comes to money and contracts, there is so much drama surrounding pretty much the NFL season because of all these question marks. We're going to take a dive deeper into one specific, actually two specific contracts that are still holding out right now. But before we could even talk about NFL next week, there's college football. Let's not forget. So we are going to definitely talk about the primetime matchups that are on our minds and that are most likely on your minds this weekend. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone? I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. And we've got a great show, as we always do for you guys today. But today we also have a guest host. But first, I want to introduce my co-host, Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
And lastly, the guest host I was talking about, Thaddeus Lloyd.
Hello.
Thank you, Thaddeus, for joining us today. We've got a great episode for you because, we're going to be talking about specifically your favorite pro team today. And, there's no better episode to join when we could talk about your own sports team. And before we talk about your favorite sports team, I'll let the audience wait to find out who that is. I want to talk about the division winners in the NFL. I don't know if you guys saw today, and I can't believe his name still, is relevant. But Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, earlier had this little program of it was a unique football game where he was throwing footballs in trash cans that he couldn't see what the teams were, but it was predicting who was going to win each division and go to the playoffs wild card. Obviously, he didn't know whose teams they were, and it was kind of interesting to watch. I did take a peek at it, but he's not physically choosing these teams. It's all blind. Well, we are going to be choosing the division winners of who we think are going to win each division in the NFL. And let's start in the AFC here, guys, and let's start out in the West as we start the AFC West division winners. To me, I feel like this is a no-brainer, just like the NFC West, just foreshadowing here. With the Kansas City Chiefs winning this division, I imagine it's going to be unanimous here, but with Patrick Mahomes at the helm, I don't see any other team taking the Chiefs in the AFC West. Would you guys agree with that?
I have no issue with that whatsoever because you take a look at an offense from last year that got it done without having somebody to take the top off of a defense, and you add Xavier Worthy, who is specifically designed to take the top off of a defense. That's just going to make that offense even better. Plus, you get another year of the Kansas City defense that, as the year goes on, they get more stifling. It's kind of reminds me of the Bill Belichick days of it doesn't look great to begin with, but by the end of the year, you're not going anywhere. That's just how it works there. So I have zero issue with the Chiefs on that one. Thaddeus?
Zero issue. They've won the division 8 straight years, starting with Alex Smith, and then Patrick Mahomes has won it like 6 or 7 years in a row now. Andy Reid's still there. They have the main pieces. I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah, and it's tough for me, being an Oregon Ducks guy and Justin Herbert on the Chargers, but I have to be real. I have to be a realist, and Patrick Mahomes is there. It's going to be really tough to top him. pretty much every year that he's there. So AFC West, we're in agreement with Kansas City Chiefs. And let's go over to the AFC South, where well, we saw a new team rise up and win this division last year, and they are poised for a lot of success, the Houston Texans. And guys, I think they're going to repeat as AFC South champions. With the addition of Stephon Diggs, although he's not as elite as he used to be, it's just another weapon for CJ Stroud, and that makes it even more dangerous. So I'm going to have to go with the Houston Texans here, although I do think it is going to be a very tough and very close division if all the quarterbacks can stay healthy in the South.
Well, I'm going to disagree, even though I'm in the state of Texas. So bring it. I'm going with Jacksonville. And a big reason for me to go with Jacksonville is one, you've got uh,
Sunshine, Trevor Lawrence.
Sunshine. Yeah. You've got Sunshine, Trevor Lawrence. He's healthy. He's good to go. And it's the schedule. In my mind, it's the schedule that makes a difference here because Houston, they won the division at 9-8 last year. So they go from a worst to first schedule, which is going to be tougher for them to get those 9 to 10 wins. So even if they match that, they're still going to have to match up with Trevor Lawrence getting those wins on a third place schedule. So there's a little bit of leeway there, and I'm just going to say Jacksonville figures it out somewhat because I still think it's going to be a barely over 500 to win the division type of stand on this division, but there's a greater chance for me looking at the schedule for the Jaguars to pull it out and the Texans to have that one game that they should win, but they don't. And that would be the difference in the year.
Yeah, I mean, he's got this new contract, Trevor Lawrence, and he has led this team to win that division just a year prior. So he has that, and Doug Peterson is a very experienced coach who has won a Super Bowl. And I just think that Jacksonville definitely can be there. So that's going to be very interesting to see. Thaddeus, what are your thoughts on the AFC South?
I I would agree with you, Matt. I think I'd take the Texans for it. Literally, the only thing I think holding them back would be the hypothetical sophomore slump from Stroud and Will Anderson, the two rookies of the year for offense and defense. Because other than that, they could improve even more. You know, they were already really good. They were pretty good for rookies, and I could just see them going up from here. Um, yeah, I'm looking at the Colts and the Jaguars, and I think both teams could, you know, at most I have them at as mid teams. Um, it's just I didn't see enough last year to prove it, and then with the whole thing for the Jaguars, I don't believe in Trevor Lawrence that much. He's had 3 years. The first year we can disregard because the coach. And then he's only had, if you put it together, he's only had one good year between the end of 22 and the first half of last year's season. But then he got injured, and he had a really rough stretch. So I go off recency bias a lot, I'll admit, but I don't see the Jaguars being that good actually. Um, I think the defense is still kind of iffy for them. I think the Colts will do better if, and the big if, is if Anthony Richardson stays healthy. And I think it'll be closer competition between the Colts and the Texans for the division than the Jaguars and the Texans. So, but I do have the Texans winning the division as well.
Yeah. This next division is going to be a tough one for me. But the AFC North, this is going to be one of the tougher divisions per usual in the NFL. I assure you there's no bias there, just facts. But the AFC North is So tough. It is smash mouth football. Last year, we saw the Ravens do what they did in not just the division, but the entire NFL. And I feel like they're going to repeat as AFC North champions, not my Steelers. The reason why I'm not picking the Bengals here is just because the what ifs. What if Joe Burrow gets hurt again? We see this Bengals team without Joe Burrow. They aren't the same. They are still a good team, but they aren't the same without Joe Burrow there. So I'm just gonna say this on the what ifs. What if he does get hurt again? If not, that team is lethal. But Baltimore will always compete. They will always be right there. Lamar Jackson, they did pick up Derrick Henry in free agency. That's going to help them also. They're just that defense, just like the Steelers, that defense is elite year in and year out. So if they're having a slow day on offense, their defense will always pick them up, and vice versa. And I just think that they complement each other too well. And John Harbaugh there also is just the Ravens. I have to pick them to win the AFC North, as tough as it may be.
Well, I've to me the AFC North falls into the category of consistency over time or urgency because the window shuts after this year. And that's for me between the Ravens and the Browns. Because if the Browns can't make it work this year, Deshaun Watson's contract destroys their salary cap. So that is a big if that's out there for can they get it done? Can they get the urgency part of it? Because we know they have the defense. They've got possibly one of the best defensive players in the league, and Myles Garrett, just destroying people. And Deshaun Watson, he's getting Nick Chubb back. He's got Amari Cooper. He's got weapons to work with. It's just, can they put it all together? And to me, because of the way that organization is as a whole, being so fractured and just inconsistent, I'm going to go Ravens because, as I've said many times on this show, winning starts from the top down, and that consistency that organization has tells me that there's no reason to think that they won't just pick right up where they left off last year.
And let's not forget, the Browns also got Jerry Jeudy this offseason. So they've got one of the most talented offenses in the NFL. I am going to say that if Deshaun Watson's healthy, Nick Chubb, he's coming back from a horrific injury too. If he comes back at that same form with Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, that is a very, very talented offense. But me and Ed are in agreement though with the Ravens, just what they've done, the consistency, and I see them picking up. And they're pissed off after what happened against the Chiefs last year. Everyone's pissed off when they lose to the Chiefs like that. But the Ravens were the best team in football all year, pretty much. Well, until they met the Chiefs.
Yeah, until they didn't run the ball.
Yeah.
Well, now they have Derrick Henry, and I'm also in agreement with you too. I do think they'll win the division. I think getting Derrick Henry will offset the loss of losing Mike McDonald as defensive coordinator, in my opinion, because they're still loaded with talent on the defensive side of the ball. And then I think they're going to finally learn their lesson that you have to run the ball, especially since they have Derrick Henry now. So, I do think they're going to repeat again. I think it is the toughest division in the NFL. I got all these teams are going to be really close for that division title, but you got, like you said before, like there's more question marks with the Bengals. Can Joe Burrow stay healthy? With the Browns, can Deshaun Watson stay healthy, or at least be good enough for the Browns, because the defense for the Browns is also really good. But if Deshaun Watson is just fine, they can also contend for the title. And then you got the Steelers, super consistent as well. So yeah, you have all those factors, but we're just going to pick consistency here. Go with the Ravens.
Thaddeus, let me ask you this: how much tread do you think is left on King Henry's tires?
Well, I think yeah, it is a bit of a tough question because he's 30, 31 now. and typical shelf life of running backs is like 28. But I think he's been doing it for so long. He's got a big body. He's been able to take a lot of hits over the years. I think he still has another 2 seasons for 1,000+ rushing yards, especially with Lamar now, because now Lamar is going to be running the ball. So it's going to take some weight off Derrick Henry because he's not going to be the focal point now, because Lamar is probably the best running back in NFL running quarterback in NFL
Yeah.
history. So Lamar haters going to come after me for saying that, but yeah, so I think it's going to take a little bit off Derrick Henry, and I think he should be at the same level he was the past 2 years with the Titans. And he's going to be getting a better offensive line, because I thought the Titans' offensive line was worse, second worst in the NFL, and he still had over 1,000 rushing yards, I believe. So I think it's going to be really good.
So, Matthew, let me ask you this. Do you think that the scheme being different than what Derrick Henry had in Tennessee uh, pulls him back from the type of production that he had previously? Because the scheme in Tennessee was more downhill, one cut and go, get in between the tackles and move. Whereas in Baltimore, you are seeing more zone read, especially when you have such a weapon at quarterback. Is that going to take away from his production going forward?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, yes, the Arthur Smith offense really tailored to Derrick Henry, several years back in Nashville, and Derrick Henry is that back. He is a guy who can and has averaged 30 carries a game, but I think that this is such a compliment for the Ravens, and I was so upset when I saw the Ravens pick him up, being a Steelers fan and all, because this is really going to change a lot. Linebackers aren't going to know what to do, because if the run game with Derrick Henry is doing great, you got the linebackers are going to be sitting up. And that is just going to create such a hole where all Lamar Jackson has to do is pretty much pull the ball back, and he's going to have an open field to really throw to. I think it's just going to really cause more issues, I think, for the defenses. And that's what's scary, is because all last year, the Ravens offense was causing issues for most defenses in the NFL. And now that you add Derrick Henry, it is a completely different offense than he's used to. But Derrick Henry is such a good back that he's going to adjust, and he seems so much happier up there. And that's also a recipe for disaster for opposing defenses, when a player is happy where he's at, because you could tell he wasn't as happy in in Tennessee, yet he was still producing superior numbers.
Yeah, and also a side note, I think with the whole scheme thing, it is going to be a little bit different, but you do have that downhill running aspect with I think the triple formation, or the halfback formation, the
The
halfback behind
pistol?
the quarterback and shotgun. Yeah, pistol. Yeah, and also it's going to be. I think it's going to be really dangerous with play action, like the zone reads on play action. Naked bootleg is going to be so dangerous for the Ravens this year.
Yeah, and they got him for a really bargain price too. So kudos to them. Kudos to them. Thaddeus, I'm gonna let you actually take this one first. The AFC East, because this one is another interesting one in my opinion. So I want to hear what you have to say.
I have the Jets winning the division. Uh, yeah, so their I think their defense is incredible. It's with um, Roger. No, not Roger. I keep on thinking of that guy. Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh has coached top five defense the last like 3 or 4 years now, including his time as DC with the Niners, and he's always had consistently great defenses. And they've always all the games that the Jets have won the past few years, despite some of the bottom play in the entire NFL the past 2 or 3 years, they've still been able to win games, and it's entirely because of the defense. And now you get Aaron Rodgers, hopefully, whose Achilles doesn't tear 4 snaps in. and he can play a full season. Um, Hopefully, even if Aaron Rodgers isn't the same level like he was in Green Bay, MVP Aaron Rodgers, this team will still be very deadly. And not only that, so if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy, but not only that, but the Dolphins, while I think they'll still stay the same, the Dolphins are the same pretty much. They still struggle in cold weather. You got the Bills. They lost a ton of starters for their team. And what's Josh Allen going to look like without Stephon Diggs? We don't know about that. And then obviously the Patriots, I think, are going to be bottom tier. They're rebuilding. So those are my thoughts for the East.
You mentioned Lamar Jackson being one of the best running quarterbacks, and Josh Allen is a damn good running quarterback too, and he's a big guy, but he needs to be careful because he could get knocked out of a game real quick. But yeah, this one is definitely a toss up. And Ed, I want to hear your thoughts as well before I talk about mine.
So Josh Allen has the most running touchdowns of any quarterback since 2015. I'm going to start with that. There will be some drop off in early production from the wide receiver position for the Bills because Keon Coleman is just getting into the league, just trying to figure things out. He's not seasoned the way Stephon Diggs was when he came to Buffalo. So I can see Buffalo really playing for the division. I can see how the Dolphins could be playing for the division because they have such speed and scheme and good vibes. If you've seen McDaniel's press conferences lately, looking like he's I don't know, selling something off of a boat off of South Beach.
Rico Suave, yeah.
Right. But then you have the Jets, which Thaddeus, you're absolutely right. The defense is stacked. The offense has Garrett Wilson as a great compliment to Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers, I don't think is pissed off. A pissed off Aaron Rodgers won those two MVPs, and I don't think he's that way right now. So, is that fire going to be there that is going to just drag everybody over the finish line to win this division? That is my big question with them. In the end, it is going to be within probably tiebreakers, but I'm going to go with Buffalo on this one because there is more of a certainty at the quarterback position. And don't get me wrong, Josh Allen still has some weaponry, especially at the tight end position. And that's where that offense wants to live. It wants to live between the 20s and going vertically and then down the field, not between the 20s and then stalling out and kicking field goals, but between the hash marks all the way down the field. So you got multiple tight ends. You've got Keon Coleman coming along, and he was absolutely top tier in college. And it's easier for a college wide receiver at that level to transition into the NFL than some other positions. I think they'll have it figured out by the end of this season, and the Bills will win it probably through tiebreakers.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Ed, because my first thought was this is literally going to come down probably to the last game of the season. And I feel very strongly about that. And I don't feel as strongly about this, but I am going to agree with you, Ed, that I do think Buffalo wins this division on the very last game of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if three of these teams make it to the playoffs with Miami and the Jets behind them because them losing the division on the last game of the year. But we saw Patrick Mahomes lose Tyreek Hill, and people were like, "Oh, are they going to be the same team? Are they even going to be able to make it to the Super Bowl?" Well, they did. And I don't want to compare Patrick Mahomes to Josh Allen because we know Mahomes is better, but Josh Allen is a great quarterback. And one thing that they do have in common is although they lost their number one receiver, they've got a damn good tight end. And Buffalo's got two of them with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. And Josh Allen does like to utilize his tight ends, and I think that their offense is tailored so perfect for that, that I think they're going to be A-okay. It is going to have some adjustment period with Keon Coleman. They do have Shakur there, not Shakira, Shakur, and they are going to be able to piece it together, and they do have the experience. They have that consistency of still always being there, and one play, just because they lost one player isn't going to define their team. Yes, I know they lost more than one player, but we were talking about Stephon Diggs. So I just wanted to say that. But I do believe it is going to come down to the last game of the year where Buffalo does pull this one out, even though Mike McDaniel is slowly becoming my favorite coach in the NFL.
So 2 points, if I could. One, Josh Allen is 40 seconds and a better defense away from being a Patrick Mahomes killer.
Yeah.
And two, the Bills had to figure out what that team would look like without Stephon Diggs, and they were okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you saw him get traded down to Houston and not just released and then Houston picking him up. So those are the 2 points that would definitely back that up.
Yep. And keep in mind, I know it was one of the coldest games last year, but the playoff game last year the Bills had against my Steelers where they won. Stephon Diggs, I want to say, only had like one catch that entire game. So they didn't need him necessarily to win the game. They were still able to adapt. And just like Ed said, they knew that, and that's why they let him go. And I think that they'll ultimately be fine. But let's switch things over to the NFC, and we'll start with the NFC East here. Ed, I'll let you start with this one.
Can every team in this division just blow up? I can't like any of them, and I can't hate a couple of them. So I'm just like, because okay, so you got the Eagles with the new offensive coordinator, affectionately known in our circles as Shovel Face.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be the go-between between the head coach and the star quarterback. How is that going to work out? Then you go over to the Giants. You don't know if that guy is going to be upright in a month.
Yeah.
Then you've got Jerry Jones, playing tiddlywinks with with his roster, trying to play the leverage game when he has none. And hell, who am I missing?
Washington. Yeah.
Washington, which is going to be led by a rookie quarterback that's just stepping into a franchise that had basically nothing by the end of last year. So can anybody be excited about this division? I know I'm not, but if I had to pick somebody, it's going to be Philadelphia, because Dak Prescott's going to throw in the towel on Jerry Jones at some point because he knows he's going to get paid at the end of the year. No. Jerry is not going to sign Dak Prescott to any unprecedented contract before he hits the open market at this point. With the Eagles, you've got one of the more dynamic wide receiver duos in the league, with
AJ Brown, Devontae Smith.
AJ Brown and Dante Smith. So those are the best options that we have at this point to see who would take control of this division, because there's really nothing left out of the Giants and the Commanders. I almost said the word.
The football
team. The commies. Everyone knows it's the commies.
So I'm just going to stick with the Eagles and shut my mouth.
Okay. The thing here is the Cowboys have had so much drama surrounding them this offseason, and Jerry Jones is still there, that I think is going to cause some issues. But where I think the Eagles are going to take this division is Eagles made it to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They were one of the best teams in the NFL when they made it to the Super Bowl. And last year, we didn't see that same Eagles team. And I think that they want to get back to that elite level that they know they could be at and be a team that could represent the NFC. And I think they've got the talent to do so. And as they just picked up Saquon Barkley as well, if he could stay healthy. But just to add to that offense that already has Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. So I'm just saying that I think that the Eagles can get back to that form pretty easily, if you ask me. And I think they're going to take the division this year. Thaddeus?
Um, I think I got it's going to be close. It's another one of those really close divisions for the division title, but I'm going to give this one to the Cowboys. Actually, be the first repeat champion since the 2001-2004 Eagles. No team has won the division twice in a row since then, so it's been like 20 years. But I think the Cowboys will win it because they basically have the same roster from last year, and consistency and everything. I still have questions with the Eagles. I know they're going to bounce a little bit back from last year's complete half season collapse. You got your coordinators, which I presume are going to be better than last year's because last year's were a disaster for the team, especially in the second half of the season. But I still have some questions like, you know, um, Jason Kelsey's gone. Their corners, I don't think, are very good right now. Their defense is, kind of shaky on that point. Will Jalen Hurts be able to bounce back? I mean, I think like I said, it's going to be pretty close, but I do think the Cowboys have this one. I still think they're pretty solid on both sides of the ball. Um, yeah, then the Giants and the Commanders, I don't really have very high opinions of them right now.
They don't have a real high opinions of themselves, so it's okay. Well, at least the Giants, Washington, they're halfway there, but I think they'll eventually have a brighter future than that they've had. But uh, NFC South, this is garbage throwing at garbage right here. But I don't want to disrespect our boy David's team so much because I'm actually going to pick David's team, the Tampa Bay Bucks, to win this division again this year. I like what they're doing down there in Tampa Bay. Not like full on, but I like what Baker's doing. I think Baker has really had a resurgence in his career. I really like it. I've always been a fan of Baker Mayfield, and it's nice to see what he's doing there. But they brought a lot of the band back together. I've always been a fan of teams that do that. Yes, there are some people that you shouldn't bring back, and yes, you also should, bring some people from free agency also. But uh, they brought a lot of the key pieces back, and I like that. I like rewarding players that are homegrown, that have been there, and extending them, and that's exactly what they did. And this is a team that did make it to the playoffs last year and did a pretty darn good job, in the playoffs also. So I like their chances again this year. Atlanta, they may be the second best team there, but they're a question mark. And Carolina and New Orleans, they're just like the Giants and Washington here. I'm kind of in the same boat there. So, but what are your guys' opinions?
That is.
Well, I do think the Buccaneers will be solid again. Um, but I don't think it'll be enough to win the division. I got the Falcons winning the division, and I know it's like a hot pick or something, but I really do genuinely think Kirk Cousins is going to be able to elevate this offense and give the ball to Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and the running back. Yeah,
Bijan.
Bijan. Yeah,
Hmm.
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
Bijan. But I have confidence that Kirk will be able to distribute the ball evenly, if he stays healthy, of course. Even with the torn Achilles that he had last year. And Raheem Morris is kind of a question mark, you could say, but he's had a little bit of a proven track record. He's not. He was. I remember when he was coach for the Falcons, and he was okay. Like the team did okay. So I think he's learned from that. Coming over from the Rams, he's learned because he's done coordinator jobs for both sides of the ball. So I think it's going to be really good. And the Falcons defense will be very, very good. They have some very good pieces. It might be top five this year, I believe. the defense will be. But yeah, that's who I have. Yeah, I don't, and I agree with you for the Panthers and the Saints. They're not going to be that great.
You like that, huh? You like that? That's
Yeah, I do.
so. I've got the Falcons too, and the reason I've got them is with Tampa Bay. I, they were the last person standing at by the end of the last season, and the Falcons almost won the division with how terrible the quarterback play was. So you throw in a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, and mind you, a Kirk Cousins that may feel slighted before he even takes a snap for the organization, for the franchise, because they're already drafting his replacement after they just paid him. So, much like I was saying before about Aaron Rodgers, a pissed off Kirk Cousins might actually just take the Falcons to the promised land and win the division for them. The offense is going to be more suited to have Bijan Robinson be the focal point of the offense and let Kirk do what he does best, and that's distribute to playmakers, not necessarily be the all encompassing major quarterback talent that is going to take the world by storm. No, Kirk Cousins is about getting the ball to the people that can make the differences. And that's what he's going to be tasked with doing this year. But more often than not, he's going to be tasked with turning around, handing the ball off to Bijan Robinson and let Bijan run wild for say 1,500 yards. And that's gonna be enough to win them the division right there.
Yeah, Bijan is very talented running back who could help take that load off of Kirk as he's still recovering from injury. We're gonna have to see how he is in live game action. It is a big difference, and the same thing applies for Aaron Rodgers, which we talked about earlier. So, this next
Yeah,
division.
but
Oh
yeah,
yeah, what's up,
before
Evan?
we go, I forgot to say something, but what you said about Baker Mayfield, the reason I'm kind of skeptical on the Buccaneers winning the division is because they lost Dave Canales, and he's been the QB whisperer, so they lose him, and then if you look at Baker Mayfield's career, he's been up and down every single year. He's had a great season, bad season, great season, bad season. So he's on the bad season trajectory.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can break it, but who knows?
Yeah, that is a good point. I appreciate you bringing that up, and that has been the one issue with Baker is because of that he hasn't been able to have his full potentials because he's had so many up and downs that it hasn't really been worth it. But Tampa Bay saw something, they gave him that extension, and we'll see if he has an up or down year this year. But we're going to talk about the NFC North, and I may get hate here, may get some hate here. Not from you, Ed, from the fans here, because why wouldn't I pick Detroit with the success they had last year? Why wouldn't I pick them to have that same success this year? They haven't changed much. They're still, very similar. They've got a lot of key pieces. One of the best tight ends in Sam Laporta. Um, why wouldn't I pick them? Well, that's because I think we're going to have such a coming out party. If you thought last year was, I think this year will be even more for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. That I just see the hype before anyone's really hyping them up with the Green Bay Packers. I think they're going to have a very, very special year this year. Something's just telling me it. Matt LaFleur, has been a great coach, but he hasn't been able to get over that hump, the Niners. And this year could change that. We'll see. But I just really like the Packers' chances, and I think Jordan Love is going to be one of the top quarterbacks to watch this year. It's going to be must-see football when he's on TV. So I'm going with the Green Bay Packers, but Vikings clearly know with the injury bug that they've been given. I think that we won't see their potential until next year. Chicago's going to have a massive improvement. I will say that. And they may be a fringe wild card team. They may be a team that's either one game above 500 or one game below, but I think they will have an improved year this year. But I'm going to go with Green Bay winning the division this year. Thaddeus, I'll let you take it then, Ed, to finish off on your opinion.
And I will completely agree with you. I also think the Packers are going to win the division. I got it insanely close between the Lions and the Packers winning
Yeah.
this division. I think it's going to go down probably to the last game, especially between those two. Um, but yeah, but this is only if the Packers are on the continued trajectory of their last 8 games that they played, because it was unbelievable what they were doing in the last couple of games. But it was, again, only half a season, so we're just going to have to see that trajectory, going up. Um, but yeah, but if they keep on going on that, I think they can win the division. But it's going to be close because the Lions also have one of the best rosters in the entire NFL. Best offensive line in football. They got, good quarterback, excellent playmakers. The only question I have with the Lions is the secondary. And now that was a weakness for them last year, and they did address it in the offseason. But I want to know how the chemistry and the scheme is going to be for them. So that's really my only question with them. But so that's why I'm going with the Packers for this one. The Bears, I I don't have a lot of faith in rookies and especially rookie quarterbacks. So you know prove it to me kind of thing, basically. Um, so I'm gonna give the Bears better, or actually about right where they were as far as record wise last year. But I do know the team has improved, but it's all going to depend on Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus together. And then obviously with the Vikings, there was an injury to McCarthy, so we're not going to see it. We're going to see go Sam Darnold though, which is going to be fun. But yeah, so that I do also have the Packers.
All right, Ed.
So I'll go from the bottom up. The Vikings, you got Justin Jefferson. You always have a chance because he can outrun, out jump, and out route run an entire defense by himself. But that's about it. I don't see much more coming from the Vikings than that at this point. Going to the Bears, I'm totally with you as far as Caleb Williams. I think he's a phenomenal talent. I think that he has been able to use that talent to out athlete everybody around him at every level up to this point. And does he get a big head from having a decent preseason? Well, when the bullets really start flying in regular season, the game gets even faster. And when that game gets faster, just as fast as you have been relying on your athletic ability up to this point, then you need to know how to work around that and to think your way through it. And a rookie quarterback is not going to be able to do that as well as somebody that's been in it for a while. So I think they're going to be about a 7-10, 8-9 win team, 8-9 record, 7-10, 8-9 record for that. Then it comes down to the Lions and the Packers. The Lions. When did Jared Goff become Kirk Cousins 2.0?
Yeah.
He's
true.
not somebody that anybody really thinks of as being able to run an offense or direct an offense at an elite level, but there they are with all the wins, all the statistics, all everything. But it's Jared Goff. Come on.
Yeah.
And I say the same thing. It's Kirk Cousins. Come on.
Well, it's Kirk Cousins with a winning playoff record though.
True. A Kirk Cousins that's been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And didn't
So,
score a single touchdown.
exactly. And the Lions defense, you're exactly right, Thaddeus. They are a strength of this team, especially in the front seven. The back, the chemistry that it takes to do that, you've got to kind of work through that to begin with for the season. I am going to go with the Packers, but my big question mark is going to be how the running backs that are completely different than what's been in this offense the past few years. How are they going to handle being in this offense now using Josh Jacobs? AJ Dillon was essentially released. He was put on PIP with no chance of returning.
Yeah.
So he's gone.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones is in Minnesota right now. So that gives some validity to the Vikings offense. But what the Packers have in spades right now is young talent that has been developing together and a chemistry within that organization that I don't know how many other organizations in football matched that, especially in the wide receiver room. They addressed the offensive line in the first round of the draft this year. Jordan Love is reading and being aggressive with his pre-snap reads. He's doing a good job of post-snap reading as well. The running the running attack with Josh Jacobs, but you're also talking your fly sweeps, your orbits. Those type of run plays are going to be more highlighted this year, I think, than just downhill running. Jacobs will get his, but you'll see more of that in LaFleur's offense. As far as the defensive side of the ball, you're going to get two healthy top 10 corners in the league running the secondary, as well as a front line, which is still together after all these years. There's been a couple of plug and plays, but you're also talking Kenny anchoring that line. And the kid that they picked up last year in the draft, he developed nicely through the year. So we're going to see that work out well. Rashawn Gary's going to be back. It is a complete team. The biggest question mark is the kicking game. Will the Packers lose a game because of the kicking game? They just released Anders Carlson, whom they drafted in the 6th round in 2022, to bring in some scrubs to try and kick field goals because Anders Carlson, who they had faith in, absolutely did not. So that's the only issue I have with the Packers winning the division, but I still think they come out at least a game ahead of the Lions.
Do you guys remember that one game a couple years ago when Jared Goff was on the Rams and it was a Monday night game with the Chiefs and it set like all these records for the offense and Jared Goff outdid Patrick Mahomes and the Rams won the game. It was crazy. I'm like,
Yeah, the
where did this guy?
54-51 game.
Yeah, where did the heck this guy come from?
That's
I
crazy.
mean,
Was it
yeah.
Mahomes? I thought that was Lamar.
No, this was
No,
this was a it was a Monday night game, Chiefs and Rams, and it was touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. It was back and forth. It was so crazy, and in the end, the Rams and Jared Goff won the game. It was almost like the game uh, that Baker and Mahomes had in college. It was that set all the records. So that Jared Goff, sometimes he's still in there, but for the most part, he is Kirk Cousins 2.0 with a winning playoff record. So lastly, the NFC West, dun dun dun, and the last couple years we've had the Niners and the Rams with Matthew Stafford and his injury that he's been dealing with a lot really kind of puts that up in the air. The Cardinals, yeah, they got Marvin Harrison Jr., but I just feel like that team just can't get it to click. The Seahawks, however, do have a very talented roster. This will be the first year without Pete Carroll there. And if Geno Smith could stay healthy, I do see that team being a playoff team. But it all will go through the San Francisco 49ers. This is their division to lose. They have one of the best rosters in the NFL. They are stacked offense and defensively, and they have showed the NFL that the NFC goes through them, and so does this division. So I feel like it'd be foolish of me to not pick the Niners. So I'm going to pick the LA Rams. I mean, I'm kidding. I'm going to pick the Niners to win this division in the NFC West. Ed, let's get your opinion first, and then we will end it with Thaddeus.
Simply, the 49ers are going to win the division. I think a highlight of this division will be that is outside of the 49ers will be the Rams and their receiving core, because you've got Cooper, you've got Puka, and now you've got Whittingham. That's a rookie that they brought in. I think they are 3 wide receivers that are basically, in my mind, 3 slot receivers. So they will run anywhere and they will catch anything. And I'm interested to see how that plays out and if it shows to have any kind of effect on the rest of the division. But overall, how can you not pick the 49ers at this point? The only thing that's holding them back is their own front office, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But there's nothing that you can say about the 49ers that's weak. It's all B plus or better. And that's hard to do in today's NFL.
Mm-hmm. Thaddeus?
Yeah, I also got the Niners winning the division. It's like Ed said, they've had a top 2, 3 roster the past 3 or 4 years, basically. I mean, they've been to the NFC Championship three years in a row, and I do you do see some people picking the Rams over the Niners, and they are legitimately good. I think like that Rams offense is probably going to be top 5, like you said, with the wide receiver depth, but also the emergence of Kyron Williams from last year, who was a very very good running back for them. That offense is set up to be looking very nice. But my questions for the Rams is that defense. They lost Aaron Donald. Everyone's picking Jared Verse, but again, you got to prove it to me. So and still no one can name the top 2 corners on the Rams defense. Like who's the back end for the Rams? So yeah, and then with the Cardinals, I do think they're going to be improved, especially in the second year with Jonathan Gannon. I think he's an underrated coach, but people are getting all excited. Oh, Kyler Murray, he has a number 1 receiver now. Yeah, he had DeAndre Hopkins. People forget about that. So I do think it is going to be better for the Cardinals, but again, not going to be contending for the division. And then the Seahawks, it's got a lot of questions. Mike McDonald was a very good defensive coordinator for the Ravens last year, but then again, he had a really stacked Ravens defense to play with. The Seahawks, they have a good back end, but the defensive line isn't much. So they did draft their first round draft pick was that defensive tackle from Texas, I know. So hopefully they can get it better, but I don't see the Seahawks getting better, even though the offense is pretty good. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Well, we are all in agreement there with the 49ers. And I'm just going to ask this question to both of you really quick. I was kind of out of left field. It's hypothetical. If you were to build your team behind one of these 2 linebackers, who would it be? Fred Warner or Roquan Smith?
Warner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Warner.
Fred Warner, man, if he keeps this, I don't know what it is with the Niners. With these inside linebackers they get, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, and now Fred Warner. I mean, just as recently, it's just
and Dre Greenlaw too,
and yeah,
who's also a top 10.
and that was such a blow. I felt for the Niners in the Super Bowl last year when he went down, because it could be a different game. It could if he was there, because he's that good on the field. But Fred Warner is such a stud, but so is Roquan Smith. These guys are involved in every single play on the field, they're always fun to watch every Sunday because of
Yeah.
their intensity and their talent. But I just figured I'd ask that question because those are two of the best, if not the very best, linebackers in the NFL today, and felt like it'd be a fun question to ask.
Yeah, well, it's pick your poison. Either you
Yeah,
get Roquan, who's the best pure tackler in the NFL, or you get Fred Warner, who's the best coverage
cover.
linebacker in the
hmm
NFL. So,
Who's also a pretty damn good tackler too. So
yeah,
I mean, it's yeah, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And Fred Warner has definitely made a name for himself in the NFL on both those levels. But since we are talking about the Niners, and the Niners are being talked about everywhere right now, and if you did not guess, the Niners are Thaddeus' NFL team, but there's a lot of questions happening right now on the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, we've heard the whole Brandon Ayuk stuff and Trent Williams. And this is becoming very, very weird because we saw CeeDee Lamb get this contract the other day, which now makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback, but second highest paid receiver in the NFL. Brandon Ayuk will have something to say when it comes to that, and that just made his price tag go up. We've heard the rumors of, well, what if he gets a trade to the Pittsburgh Steelers? He was fine with the contract they were going to offer, which was only $28 million a year. Well, is that going to go up if he still is requesting a trade? Well, as of now, Brandon Ayuk, who was now officially cleared medically to come back to practice, did not show up to practice, who will now be fined. I just got an alert. It looks like up to, is it $45 million a day he does not show up. The Niners can fine him. Uh, and that's tough for the Niners because here you are, you're going to find someone that you still want on your team. So is that going to make him want to play? But you have to show up. That's the matter, is you have to show up. And if he's not, he's going to get fined. And then now Trent Williams, who is officially, I mean, he is holding out. He is standing his ground. And Ed, am I correct with, is he not even on the 53-man roster right now?
He is not on the 53-man roster right now because he is truly holding out. Ayuk is a little bit different because he is a hold in. So he's been part of the team, been part of the uh, activities within the camp. He's just not participating in the practices themselves.
This does affect them because are they going to be up to speed if they do play week one? We're seeing other situations in the NFL happening too. Jamar Chase, for example, are they going to be up to speed? They have the talent, but with him not participating in practices and everything, if he does commit to playing come week one, how is that going to affect him?
What I see most often, and this is through the history of these holdouts, is especially for players that are perimeter players, when you hold out this long, the soft ligaments are easier to fail you when you get back on the field, and that's what I would be concerned with Ayuk in this situation.
Thaddeus, I'm going to ask you first, what are your thoughts on the contract situations for these two players? And secondly, why can't the 49ers get these contracts done?
yeah. So it's all a bit frustrating. Everyone's getting frustrated. Like everyone's like, oh, Brandon Ayuk's going to be traded, and then everyone wants the drama to be over like a month later, and because it's still not getting done. And with Trent Williams, and the Niners have a history of doing this with their star players. They like wait until kind of the last moment to sign them, and then oh, here's the money. They did that with Nick Bosa. However, the difference is Nick Bosa is a top three at his position, and with Brandon Ayuk wanting his money, and he literally the Niners I think were offering 26 million, and he wanted 28 million. Um, it's and it seems kind of petty of him, but players want more money, and especially if you're living in the Bay Area as he is, and so you want that money. But then the problem becomes, well, he's not a focal point of the offense, and that's the big argument for him not getting as much money as he wants, because he wants the big money, he wants the Justin Jefferson money, he wants the CD Lamb money, basically. But he can't really get that because he's probably option number 2 on the offense. Don't get me wrong, he's probably top 15 wide receiver in the NFL, but Christian McCaffrey is the focal point of the offense. So it gets all jumbled. And it's what's really annoying about this specific case is that the Niners offered him a contract earlier this year after the Super Bowl. They offered him a contract. Yeah, actually, no, wait. I think no, they were looking for trades during the draft. Nothing happened. They offered him a contract. He said no, and then they're like, okay, we might trade you. And then he's like, okay, I want to go, to the Steelers. It was reported, but then he's like, no, I don't want to go to the Steelers. Like a month later, and now he looks like, in my opinion, I think he's going to sign before day one because, like I said, he's a hold in, not a holdout. That's what I think is going to happen. He's going to sign probably $25-26 million contract. But for Trent Williams, he's the holdout. And the thing with him is that the Niners can't really trade him because he's a 36-year-old left tackle. He's still the best left tackle in the game, first ballot Hall of Famer, but they can't really trade him. And he's, with reports coming in, he's really holding out, like he's very firm in his position. And I listened to Pat McAfee, and they had George Kittle on, and they're like talking about it. And George Kittle was basically like, yeah, Trent wants his money. We all want our guys, to have the most money. We all support each other in that. So we're trying to support Trent. He's not practicing with us. He's still staying in shape. Yeah, and he's the first ballot Hall of Famer future. He's gonna be ready any week, no matter what. So, but he's trying to get his money for it. And just a little side note, but George was like, yeah, even though Trent wasn't practicing, if Trent isn't going to be available for the first week, it gives valuable reps for the backup. I forgot who it was, but there is that. So yeah, that's just the whole thing with those two. And then the Niners organization in general, it just kind of keeps a tight budget. And I think there was the little thing about they still have um, they're 49 million under the cap, and I think they might be saving it up. People think they're going to get a big free agent signing. I don't think that's the case. I think they might be saving up for Brock because they have to pay him next year. This is the last year that he's going to be on that contract. Of course, I'm hoping, as a Niners fan, he takes the Tom Brady team friendly deal, but there's like an 80% chance that isn't going to happen. So that's my view of it.
I mean, he strikes me as someone who may do a team friendly type of deal. But yeah, Trent Williams is definitely standing his ground where he's at. I don't know how that situation is going to turn out. As far as the Brandon Ayuk situation, I know it just seems like it's a lot of drama, and a lot of people now have opinions of him. Maybe he used other teams as leverage. Maybe he did. I don't know. So be it. But it always seemed like one of the issues was the fourth year in the contract. So I don't know if that's really gotten wrapped up, but that was one of the bigger issues. And now that we saw the 4-year extension with CD Lamb and the money he got, I know that Ayuk's not that dumb. He has to know he's not going to get that money, but he wants a similar type of contract with that 4-year extension. It's more of a security wise thing. So that's what I think he's hoping for. I do think that he will eventually sign his contract and remain with the Niners. They just need to get this done because it has caused such a distraction. But I mean, Thaddeus, what are some things that maybe the Niners have done right that the media just really isn't talking about?
I think I think they've kept it nice. Like they haven't, like Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, they haven't specifically, said anything to tip off the media too much. Um, they're like, yeah, we're trying to piece this together, kind of thing. And the media has kind of portrayed John Lynch as kind of like this hypocrite almost. But I do think both sides are genuinely trying to reach to a conclusion. And behind the scenes, the team, they're they've won a lot of games. They won a lot of playoff games. They're one of the oldest, if not the oldest team in the NFL, and so they have experience behind them, and they're going to prepare. And I truly believe that they're just going to piece together. They know exactly how the NFL itself works. It's a business, so they're going to prepare accordingly. If Ayuk signs, great. If he doesn't sign, they're just going to roll with it. So that's what I think for that. But
Ed, anything you want to add on or ask Thaddeus about his Niners?
Well, you'd mentioned the $49 million under the cap, and that is $49 million under without taking on Trent Williams' cap number, being that he's not on the roster right now. So that adjustment of him when he does come back, because I'm certain that he will, to me, Trent Williams is possibly the most important piece of the Niners offense, because when he was out and injured last year, that is when the Niners struggled. And I believe we had the stat at one point where when Trent Williams was at left tackle, the Niners scored 16 points a game when he was out. When he was in, they scored 34 points a game. He was that important to that team's success. But Thaddeus, let me ask you this. When it comes to time to sign Brock Purdy, what do you think is going to be the first portion of that roster that has to be trimmed to make room for the contracts of Brock Purdy and still keep Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk?
yeah, that's going to be the tough thing. And I'm really sad to have to say this, but I think it might be George Kittle. He is, one of the more he's this, top two tight end in the league, but he also does cost a lot of money, and he's getting up there in age. I think he's 31, 32 right now, and I don't know what exactly they're going to have to cut. The defensive line is also pretty expensive. It's one of the best in the NFL. Like but it's a very top heavy roster, and they've managed to fill some holes over the years with very cheap players that are just plug and play because their top tier players are so good they can cover for those guys. But one of those top tier guys or two of them might have to be cut from the offense and defensive side if Brock, wants that top five money. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that will need to be answered there and will need to be answered soon. Like I said, we're a week away from the very first game of the NFL season, it being on a Thursday, and the Niners will be playing just a couple days later. So it is there are several questions that need to be answered and settled out. They aren't the only team that's dealing with this. There are other teams. I mean, the Cowboys just did it, but they also have a lot of question marks too with Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott, and there are several other teams also. So something to keep an eye on as we are just a mere week away from the start of the NFL season. So keep your eye on that. Thaddeus, I want to thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate having you here. Wish you and your Niners the best. Hopefully you guys get those questions answered, and we'd love to have you on again on the show.
Yeah, I totally would love to be back. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. You have a good rest of your evening, Thaddeus.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it was awesome to have Thaddeus on the show with us today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that also. I did mention we will be talking about college football. I want you guys to tune in because we do have a very special episode coming out this weekend to be previewing those college football games, those marquee matchups that I'm sure you guys want to hear. So tune in specifically for that, as me and Ed will have a Saturday special for that. But guys, we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you guys sharing these videos, liking, subscribing. Please continue to do so, and to join us in the comments and in the chat as we talk all things, all sports, football, college football, NFL, but especially this episode with the division winners. Please, in the comment section, let us know your predictions and where you felt we were wrong or where we were right. We really want to hear that. And we will definitely be talking more about that throughout the season. But don't forget to tune in Saturday, guys. We're going to have a great show then. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third and we are headed for home.